Got my Polaroid shirt on. Probably gonna talk about some cameras. Okay, so welcome back. If you're new to this channel, thank you for joining. Please stick around. I promise you I will keep it interesting. On this channel, we like to talk about film photography, a little bit of travel, a little bit of other photo, video stuff, and just kind of whatever I feel like doing. But those are the primaries. So today we're gonna be talking my top 5 things that are gonna help you when thrifting your first film camera. So how it's gonna work is I'm gonna start at the least important, number 5, and kind of work my way down to the most important, which would be, of course, number 1. And I'll throw some tips and tricks in there along the way. And at the end, I might even have a bonus tip for you. So be sure to stick through the whole video if you are going out to thrift your first film camera. So I've decided to make this video because I've been thrifting cameras for the past 3-4 years or so. And I think about 95% of the cameras I own have been thrifted, whether it be in-store or online, like Facebook Marketplace or Let Go, OfferUp, places like that. I think the only cameras I have that haven't been thrifted are the Rolly, which my wife got me, the Nikon F2, and Mamiya C330, which I bought from Chris. I think that's it. Unless you count the Goodman Zone, but I printed that, so of course I did thrift the lens. So if those are the only 3 or 4 cameras that I haven't thrifted, and 95% of the cameras I have been thrifted, you do the math. I've done this a little while. Now keep in mind, this doesn't just apply to going out to a thrift store. It could be looking on Facebook Marketplace, OfferUp, Let Go, things like that, Craigslist, whatever it is. As long as you're going to go physically look at the camera first, this is going to help you find one that actually works and one you will be happy with. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so number 5 is gonna be have an idea of what you want. For those of you who are more into film photography, obviously you know what you want, you know what you're looking for. But if you're just starting out, you might be thinking, well, how do I have an idea what I want? I don't know what I want. This is my first camera. Then next thing you know, you spend hours online searching and searching and searching, and it ends up being one of the most complicated life decisions you've ever made. And then you quit before you even get started. We don't wanna go that far. So basically what we wanna know is, do you want a point and shoot, an SLR, or a rangefinder? Or are you looking for something that is fully automatic? Do you want something that's fully mechanical? Do you want something that's fully electronic? Do you want a little bit of both? Do you want something older? Do you want something newer from the 80s or 90s? It's a little bit more plasticky, but it's probably gonna have autofocus and things like that. Or do you want to shoot manual focus? Is there a particular camera in mind that you have been looking for, such as like a Canon AE1 or a Minolta X700? These are all things we want to have a general idea about before we even go thrifting. Why? Because you don't want to show up at a thrift store, stand there in front of a camera for 2 hours and have them wonder whether you're going to try and steal it and run out of the building, or if they should charge more for it because they think you found something really special. We don't want that. I'd rather sit at home for an hour and a half, do my research, and then go in, spend 20 minutes, get in and out, be done. Do a little bit of research, have a general idea of what you want before we get there. So you get to the thrift store, you're feeling confident, you know exactly what you want, you walk up to the shelf, and you see that camera and you point and say, I'm taking you home tonight. Pump the brakes. We don't want to jump in anything serious. We don't want to be committed to something that isn't going to work out for either of us. We need to take a few steps to make sure that this is going to be something that actually works out, okay? So let's go. That brings us to number 4, which is take that camera and do a quick eBay search. You're going to go to eBay. You're going to type in the exact name of that camera. The exact name of that camera. Well, what do I mean by that? We're not going to type in black Nikon 35mm camera. If it is a Canon AE1 program, you're going to type in Canon AE1 program, not Canon A1, not Canon AE1, Canon AE1 program. If it is a Nikon N60, you're going to type in Nikon N60. If it is a Rolleiflex or a Leica, you are going to buy that camera and walk out the door as fast as you can. But seriously, type in the exact name of that camera into eBay search. Boom. Now up on the right-hand corner, go to filter, scroll down to sold items. Why do we want to look at sold items? Because Jimmy down the street has been trying to sell his daddy's Canon A1 for the past 6 months, and he keeps posting on the top for $300. And we don't want to buy a Canon A1 for $300, do we? Because Jimmy doesn't know what he has. Jimmy is a little punk kid who wants a new Xbox. That's why we check the sold listings, not the listings that are currently available. Okay, so we're in sold. Let's say the top one, let's say it's $10. Go to the original listing It might say sold for parts. Okay, so $10 it was sold for parts. That's not what we want. We want something that is relatable to what you see on the shelf there. So the next one says, what, $300. Okay, click on that. Look at the original listing. Okay, so it might be brand new, in box, never been used. Okay, well, that is definitely not what I see on the shelf there, so that also does not apply. Now you might find another one that looks just like yours, kind of beat up, but not too bad, reliable, but not too over the top, so you click on that. It says $60. Moderately used condition, rough scratches, normal wear and tear, still works as it should. That's the one we want to look at. What is the price on that camera? Let's say it's $40. The one you're looking at is $30. Now you have to weigh out whether you want to take the risk. It's about the right price, but you don't know if it works or not until you put a roll of film through it. So you have to weigh out whether you want to take that risk and buy it now for a little bit cheaper or wait and buy something else. If it's $10 to $20, I say buy it. Worst case scenario, you can sell it for parts. That brings us to number 3, which is check the cosmetic condition of that camera. Are there any cracks in the body or the lens hood, anything like that? Are there any dents on the top of the viewfinder? That could mean the prism is cracked, or you could have electronic issues. Are there any other cracks? Is there rust? Is there corrosion anywhere? Anything that would suggest there is a problem. Open up the battery compartment. Is there corrosion inside that battery compartment? Is it clean? Are there batteries in it and working? If so, you're good to go. Next, open up the film door. Check that. Is there any sign of corrosion in there? Any sign of water damage? Anything like that. Check the light seals while you're in there, which is along the film door. What's the condition of those? If you touch it, does it just turn to dust? Or is it relatively new and still working? Which could mean that this camera was recently used. Make sure you take a good look at all those things to see if you're gonna have any serious issues down the road. Okay, so we've made it through 3 steps. We did our research before. We showed up, we checked some prices on eBay. We just checked out the cosmetic condition of the body. It's looking pretty good. We're feeling pretty good, feeling pretty confident, feeling like there might be some sort of connection here, some sort of relationship could be developing. Okay, we need to find out why this camera's been sitting on the shelf, why nobody's picked it up. What kind of quirks or oddities does it have going on that I don't know about? Before we jump into something serious, that's what I want to know. But before we get to step 2, here's a little bonus tip. If you have a good idea of what you want to get when you're thrifting a camera, bring the necessary tools you're going to need for that camera. So for example, the Canon AE1 program, it uses a battery, a very specific battery, and not only that, it will not operate without that battery. So you can't test any functions without a battery in it. Also, you might want to bring a coin so you can open up a battery compartment if it's something like a Minolta X700. Sometimes you can use a key, it just depends, it's kind of finicky. It's much easier with a coin though, a quarter or a nickel, just depending on the body. Also, if you happen to have an old roll of film, or you can get one for free, one that's expired, it doesn't need to work at all, it's just so you can test some of the features of the camera. Bring that also. So you might be thinking, why am I going to buy a battery for a camera if I don't even know if it works yet? Well, simple. If you've done your research and you kind of know what you want and you found something that falls into those guidelines, if you have the batteries, you can test it. So go to a CVS, Walgreens, go on Amazon or whatever, and buy the batteries you think you're going to need. So you could buy a battery for a Canon A1 program, and then also the batteries for a Minolta X700. You have both of those, keep the receipts, keep them in the package, bring it with you to the store. If you find the right camera, test it, make sure it works, and you can return the other battery. Or if you don't end up finding a camera that uses any of those batteries, you can return them both. But it is much safer to know that it works instead of gambling and ending up finding up later. Trust me, I've been there, you don't want to do it. So that's going to bring us to tip number 2, which is test all the settings of the camera. What do I mean by that? So you've already checked the film door, you've already checked the battery compartment. Make sure you check the film rewind on the bottom. If that's stuck, you're gonna have serious issues later, and it could mean that there's a lot of gunk inside there that might cause some serious problems later. Check the film advance. Is it smooth? Does it stick at all? That's called sticking. It should slide right back. It's not sticking. It's sticking. Make sure it fires. Check the ASA or ISO button. Make sure you can adjust that all the way through. This is where having a battery comes in handy, because if you don't, and you have something like a Canon A1 program Minolta X700, you can't test any of those settings. So you basically have to guess on how it looks like, of whether or not it's gonna work and whether you wanna take the risk in buying it. Take the lens off. Open up the back film door. Now turn the shutter speed all the way down to 1 second. Advance it, pull the trigger. Now do that with every setting on the camera. So go to a half second, pull it, go to a fourth of a second, pull it, go to an eighth of a second. Hold it up to a light and test it on every single shutter speed. The slower shutter speeds like 1/4 of a second to 1 second, tend to be sticky with older cameras. Not always the case, but it tends to be the case. If that's so, you might not want to take the risk on this camera because it could lead to further deterioration of the insides and problems with higher shutter speeds later on. It could wear in over time after you've used it a little while. It could shake loose some of that grease or dust or dirt, whatever's stuck in there, kind of slowing it down, and could work out, but it's not a risk you want to take if you don't know how to fix some of these cameras. So after you've tested all that, make sure, of course, that the mirror is popping up with each shutter speed as well. Look through the viewfinder. Is there anything blocking it? Put the lens back on it if, of course, it's an SLR. If it's a point and shoot or a rangefinder, you only have the option to take off the lens anyways, so don't worry about that. But look through the viewfinder. Make sure you can focus back and forth. If you brought a roll of film, put that film into the back of the camera. Pull it across, insert it into the tab. I have a video where I showed how to do this previously, kind of in a cool way. I'll link that down below so you can see that. Put it in there, make sure that it advances. Since this is a dead roll of film, go ahead and advance it 4, 5, 6, 10 times to make sure that that film goes. I've come across certain camera bodies that'll be fine for the first 3 or 4 shots, and then there isn't enough tension or enough strength on the film advance, and so it won't pull the film anymore, and you end up on one frame, and then the roll is useless, and the camera is also useless. Not something you want to deal with. So that's where that roll of film comes in handy. So if you're new to film photography, this is probably a little bit overwhelming. There's a lot going on, and you're not sure what cameras you're looking for or what you're looking at. So in this video, I was going to incorporate some of the most common cameras you're going to find while thrifting, and some of the most common ones I have found while thrifting. Granted, it will depend on where you're located. I mean, different areas will just have different cameras. So just because I didn't want this to be a 30-minute long video, I'm gonna do a separate video kind of talking about some of the most common cameras I have found while thrifting and just giving you a very quick, basic overview of what they should look like if you're going to pick them up from a thrift store. Now that will also translate into other film cameras. So even if you find one that's not one of the exact ones that I mentioned in that video, they will be pretty much similar enough to where you can kind of get a good idea of what you're looking for and pick up that camera. So make sure you subscribe, like, comment down below, and check in later for that video because I promise you it will be beneficial to you if you are new to getting into and thrifting cameras. So now things are looking really good. The camera looks good, the camera works great, you found it at a good price. It's about to get real. You're just ready to go up, snatch that thing off the shelf, take it home, and shoot some bangers. But there's one last thing we need to check. Take off the lens. So you're gonna take it, hold it up to a light. You wanna look through both ends. You wanna make sure there's no fungus, any mildew, anything like that. Fog, no haze, dirt, debris inside that lens. Fungus in camera lenses is gonna look like spider webs kind of peeling off from the sides. Haze is gonna look more spotty. If there's any of that inside the lens, it is gonna be very difficult to clean properly and reassemble, so you would probably wanna stick away from it. And the thing with those is that they get worse and worse over time. So next up, we wanna make sure all of the aperture stops work. Hold it up, make sure, looking through it, and then check every single stop along the way. Make sure it clicks, make sure that hole gets just smaller and smaller and bigger as each step goes. Make sure you don't have any shutter blades that are crooked or off-centered. Also, put it on the highest f-stop you have. So this one is f22. Look at those blades on both sides. Is there any rust? Is there any fungus on those lenses? Is there any grease or oil on those? If that's the case, it could get stuck relatively quickly, and then you are stuck with whatever aperture it is stuck on, or you can't use it. Make sure the focus pull is nice and smooth, accurate. If it's really loose, it could be a problem. If it's really stiff, it could also be a problem. It needs to be somewhere in the middle of it. Now, if you've done all those steps and you are confident enough to make the investment, it's time to pull the trigger. It's time to really just, commit to this. Invest your time, money, take this baby, walk out those doors, and start shooting film. Now, if you have any hesitations or if there's anything that concerns you with this camera, hold off. There's no need to rush into it. As long as you keep up with this and check other thrift stores, you're probably going to run into another camera. There's no sense in buying one just because you found it at a good price if it's too risky to where it's not even going to work for you. And then you have to start all over again, and you end up spending more money and more time on the process. So that covers my top 5 things you should know when going to thrift your first film camera. We went over some basics, we went over some tips, some tricks, some things you might want to bring, and just some bonus content to kind of help you get a better idea going into buying your first film camera. So I hope you found that enjoyable and slightly entertaining. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment down below. And remember, I will have a follow-up video later on talking about some of the most common cameras you're going to find when you go thrifting. So be sure to check back for that. So until then, I will see you in the next video.